Hey, this is Dr. Drew. And did you know that cholesterol-lowering statin medications are the #1 prescribed medication in the United States? So there's a lot of money to be had in this game we call cholesterol. And most people, when they hear that word, they think bad, they think not good, they think I need to lower it. Whereas you need to actually look at a lot of the benefits first of cholesterol and then determine where should I be? And then on top of that, you need to look at the research behind statins because it's a pretty dark hole you can go down. In particular, if you have not had a cardiovascular event, such as, a heart attack where there's been heart damage, the research around statins is very low to zero, meaning that the benefit you get from that is not at all worth the side effects that that drug causes. In fact, even if you take that medication and you haven't had a cardiovascular event, but it lowers your cholesterol, it's still not going to reduce your risk for future events. And it gets even worse when you start talking about females specifically. So statins only really benefit males if they've had a cardiovascular event, and the research around females is very thin. On top of all that, cholesterol has some wonderful, wonderful purposes in the body. It's not put there for no reason. So cholesterol is a precursor to vitamin D. When sunlight hits your skin, twists cholesterol molecules into vitamin D precursors. It's extremely important for the sex hormone production. So it's a precursor to your testosterone and estrogen and progesterone. And all the cells of your body have cholesterol within the phospholipid bilayers. So it's not meant to just be aggressively lowered either, because too high cholesterol is actually just about as dangerous as low cholesterol. So it's all about sweet spots, and your body's great at this. There's sweet spots for blood sugar, electrolytes. There's sweet spots for cholesterol as well. And because it's a precursor to vitamin D and your sex hormones, dropping it too much can really affect your mood, your mental health, your libido, your sex drive, and your vitamin D production, which is responsible for touching a ton of different systems. And I've done full videos on vitamin D, so you can click back and check those out. But needless to say, cholesterol has been wrongly demonized, but the money that Big Pharma is making with statins, it'll just completely blow your mind. Now, when it comes to statins, there's some very important side effects to watch out for. One of the most common ones is it drives up muscle inflammation, causes muscle weakness, and one of the main complaints, especially in the elderly population, is they have trouble going up and down stairs or getting on and off the toilet since taking the statin, because it causes widespread myoinflammation, muscle inflammation. And you can sometimes see this on blood work. You'll get a high amount of the CK muscle enzyme breakdown, and there's no other thing off in the blood work. It's just, why is the CK enzyme gone up? You start asking about like fatigue and muscle weakness and strength issues, and what do you know? Boom, take them off it. The symptoms go away. The CK enzymes start to come down. Also, anyone watching this that is on a statin, and if you have to be on one, so be it. I find most people don't need to be, but there's a small subset of people that need to be on it. You then need to make sure you're taking Coenzyme Q10. That's CoQ10. Ubiquinol, or ubiquinone as it's also known as, because when you take a statin, you not only block cholesterol production, but you block CoQ10 production as well. Why do we care about that? CoQ10 is energy currency of the body. It plugs into the mitochondria and you generate energy from it. So you can offset the statin side effects by taking CoQ10, 200 milligrams once or twice a day. Sort of is a minimum required if you're going to be on statins. Quite often, if people are on a low dose, say it's 5, 10, 20 milligrams of a statin, you include the CoQ10, a lot of their fatigue, muscle weakness, etc. goes away. So very important. When you get a cholesterol panel done, typically it's going to include total cholesterol, LDL, HDL, and triglycerides. What do we care about the most? Well, you have to remember with total is it's a summation of your LDL, your HDL, and then a fraction of your triglycerides. We don't just want to look at total right away and get all excited and jump all over that, because it's a summation of those things below. You need to look at each piece separately first. And remember, there's two types of cholesterol. There's LDL, which is considered a little more bad, and then you have your HDL, which is a little more beneficial and heart healthy. And so again, those two are added together and then they impact your total. And then you have triglycerides, which are circulating free fatty acids. The most important piece to keep low, in my opinion, is the triglycerides first. I would rather you have low triglycerides and slightly high LDL than the other way around, because if you're not handling your triglycerides really well and you're not clearing them and those are starting to go up, that's a bad news risk factor for heart stuff. Same thing when you pair high triglycerides with low HDL. Now you have two of the risk factors I don't love to see. So if someone has a high, robust amount of HDL and their triglycerides are in check and nice and low, I mean, that's two really good things right out of the gate. And I haven't even looked at the total yet, and I haven't even looked at the LDL yet. Then I will circle back and go, okay, with the context now of decent HDL and low triglycerides, how's the LDL doing? And if the LDL is normal or even high normal, I'm less concerned in a case like that. But if they have high LDL, crappy low HDL, and then triglycerides are off the charts, well, now we definitely have a problem, and we really need to look at, okay, some dietary interventions, some natural stuff before jumping on the statin train, because again, I've seen too many people aggressively lower the cholesterol, and that causes all kinds of problems. So there's some risk ratios you can look at, which the HDL and the triglyceride ratios help offset, but don't just jump at the total number. I certainly don't get excited at the LDL until I've seen, relatively speaking, what's the HDL and triglycerides doing. But very important to keep the circulating fatty acids and triglycerides in check. Beneficial, high amounts of HDL is protective. And a lot of people also think that cholesterol is just from fat. So it's like, if I have high cholesterol, I should go on a low-fat diet. It's one of the worst things you can do, because fats are critical, they're essential, and as I already mentioned earlier, cholesterol has its benefits. So you're not trying to tank this too much. But if you have cholesterol derangement, you need to look at, okay, liver inflammation, fatty liver. Usually what drives up and tinkers with the cholesterol levels is excess alcohol, smoking, processed foods, fried foods, any oxidized oils or deep fried foods, very important, and then sugars. So you need to look at all of those long before you're looking at, like, oh, I'm eating too much fatty meat, or I'm eating too much avocado. Like, that is completely secondary to a lot of the junk I just mentioned that is likely jamming up your liver, causing inflammation and driving up your cholesterol levels, or, causing wacky triglycerides to happen. So stay nice and lean, regular resistance training several times a week. If there is fatty liver going on, then there's a whole protocol we can initiate for that. But let's kind of comb through some of the greatest hits that I've seen over the last few years when it comes to naturally supporting cholesterol levels. Vitamin E, really, really cool vitamin, mixed tocopherols at 400 IU a day. Really good at lowering LDL. Very safe, very indicated, and you don't need to go overboard with it. So none of this 800, 1200 IU stuff, but about 400 IU a day. Really good for the standard size adult. Berberine. Now, I've talked about this in probably several videos. Most recently, I was talking about it for blood sugar balancing, but it's also really good at cholesterol balancing, because it does a whole bunch of other things. So it does blood sugar, does blood pressure lowering, but also helps regulate cholesterol levels. So it's just a really good metabolic tonic. 500 milligrams 3 times a day for blood sugar and blood pressure will also help lower LDL and then raise HDL, and just sort of help with the issues with the lipids that can happen in a case of hypercholesterolemia. Niacin's another big one. So tons of good research around niacin, and you do want to get the niacin. This is vitamin B3. You want to get the form that causes flushing. Now, what I mean by that is when you take, for the first time, 500 milligrams of just nicotinic acid, you're going to get tingly in your skin. You're going to have redness develop in certain areas. Your skin might feel warm, and it might feel a whole lot weird at first. Got to remind you that that's pretty normal, and your body will, over time, deal with that. And then as you increase the dose and develop more tolerance, that'll happen a lot less. But it is a great, safe thing to include when you're dealing with high cholesterol levels. Now, the medicinal dose is somewhere around 1,500 to 3,000 milligrams a day, which is quite a whopping dose. I wouldn't recommend starting there, but usually I have people take 500 milligrams and then build up some tolerance, and then say 2-3 days later, maybe go 500 milligrams twice a day. Now we're up to a gram. A few days later, 500 milligrams 3 times a day. Now we're up to 1.5 grams. And just kind of settle in somewhere around that 1.5 grams, maybe up to 2.5 grams, depending on body size. And then eventually that flush will go away. If you take an extended break, maybe like a week or 2 off, and then you want to go back to like your 2 grams a day, that might hit you like a Mack truck. So you might have to build back up again. But story short, once you build the tolerance, you can take high doses of niacin, and they've studied this in schizophrenic and mental health patients at whoppingly high doses, never cause any problems in their system. There's a small subset of people at the high dose was causing some liver irritation, but that is so vanishingly rare. It doesn't interact with any medications. And once people settle in at their 1.5 or 2 grams a day, awesome for balancing cholesterol. I see this all the time in patients. Their doctor wants to put them on a statin, and they're like, please let me try a few things. Let me just work at this for a bit. 3 months with this stack I'm going through with you right now, wonderful results. Another big one is fish oil. So when you have blood lipid issues and you're looking to balance them, high quality omega-3s. So make sure you're looking at around 1,000 milligrams of EPA a day. Make sure it's high quality, third-party tested, doesn't have any contaminants, heavy metals, and make sure there's no fish burps and it doesn't smell or taste rancid, because if it does, it's gone bad. That's oxidized oil and it'll be really bad for you to ingest, so I don't want you to do that, okay? And then finally, a lot of the statins research and development has been around red yeast rice extract. So some of the products we use have that in it, which is basically the naturally occurring form of statins. And so crumbs or microdoses of that thrown in with this entire stack that I was just talking to you about, like the vitamin E and berberine and niacin and fish oils, can be a nice way to round it off. So this is kind of the main go-tos that I reach for when I'm dealing with cholesterol cases. I'm getting people off statins. We're repleting their CoQ10. We're making sure that if that statin's in there, it's only in those select few cases that are really well indicated, because generally speaking, as I mentioned earlier, unless you've had significant cardiovascular events, the research around statins is pretty damn abysmal and you don't need to be taking it. So if this is ringing true to you, or you know somebody that's on one of these drugs and they haven't been given this information, please share it with them. If you have questions, just drop a comment below. And as always, thank you for watching.